Hi and welcome to our validation video tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be discussing one of the most important Sensible TableView features, which is validation. With validation, Sensible TableView can automatically validate all values entered by the user before they are committed to your bound objects or bound keys. In addition, Sensible TableView also gives you the option of providing your own custom validation to validate these values. So let's see this in action. What I've done here is that I've created an application that's very similar to the one we've created in the intro video. So in my root view controller, I've created a table model here and a task. And in the implementation file, I've created a class definition that's very similar to the one we've created in the intro video, except that I've created just three properties here: name, due date, and priority. And notice here that for the first time we see something called a UI element delegate. And I'm assigning the UI element delegate of the class definition to the root view controller, which means that I want all the generated elements, which in this case they're all the cells to have my root view controller as their delegate. And here I'm defining the name property definition. I'm setting its required property to true. As you recall, we did the exact same thing in our introductory video. And in addition, we're setting the auto validate property to false, which means that I'm telling Sensible TableView that I will provide my own custom validation for the name property, as we'll see later. I'm also assigning the required property of due date to true, which means that I'm requiring the user interface will require a date to be entered before the data is valid. And finally, I am extending the definition of the priority property. I'm setting my own custom title to priority, as I'm setting the range from 1 to 10 on the title, and I'm extending the attributes of the property to a minimum value of 1 and a maximum value of 10, and I'm not allowing any float values. Next, I'm allocating a task here and initializing the name to my task. Finally, I am initializing a model, initializing a section. We've seen all of this before, and this is something that we see for the first time. I'm adding what's called an object cell, which is a cell that actually represents an object. And once this cell is tapped, a detail view will appear with all the object properties there, and we're actually going to see this when we're on the application. One final thing, of course, here we're releasing the model and we're releasing the task as usual. But before we run, there is one method here that I want you to take note of, which is value is valid for cell. And this is actually a method of SC TableView cell delegate. And if I go back quickly to the header file, you'll see that my root view controller actually conforms the SC TableView cell delegate. And a common way to see to find out the different methods of delegates in Sensible TableView is through actually the integrated developer documentation. So actually, Sensible TableView optionally can integrate with your Xcode developers help. So let's hear all of Sensible TableView classes and protocols and delegates are here. Furthermore, I can specifically search for the thing that I want, which is in this case SC TableView cell delegate, and there it is. So the method I'm actually interested in is value is valid for cell, which provides kind of a custom validation for you to start with. So it returns whether the cell is valid or not for the given cell. We'll see this in action. Now, the first thing you notice here is that I'm actually checking the tag of the cell. And what's happening here is that, let me go up again. What's happening here is that both object cell and object section will always specify a tag for the generated cell that's equal to the index of the property declared in the class definition. So the index of name is 0, the index of due date is 1, the index of priority is 2, and this is how it goes. And this is why the index of the name property is 0. So by checking that the cell tag is 0, I'm sure that the cell that's coming here is the name cell, and thus it's an instance of an SC text field cell. So here I cast the cell, and I'm just having some fun here. I will have I'll have Sensible TableView reject any name that does not start with my. So this is a simple piece of code that just checks that the first two letters of whatever the user string that the user have entered is my, and that's it. So let's run and see what we'll get. Okay, so this is my object cell, and I'll click here, and this is the name of my task that I've initialized and view did load in the code. And notice that the done button here is non-enabled. So let me choose a date here. And as soon as I choose a date, the done button is enabled. Notice that although I have certain validation requirements for priority, but it is not required, and that's why done is enabled even though there is no value for priority. However, let's check if we enter an invalid value like 0, which is under 1, done is disabled, and 11, which is 11, which is above 10. However, if we enter any value in between, the done button is enabled. Finally, let's check our custom validation. So I'll just remove this here, and if I just type my task with an I, done is still disabled, and I'll just have to type my task for the done button to be enabled, and I can now, since I'm conforming to all the validation rules that exist here, I can now just tap the done button and I'm done. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I'm looking forward to having you in another tutorial. Goodbye.